Dino, welcome to the call.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the invite.
Cool. So we're talking to Northwestern Mutual Advisors today about investing in the best ways to invest in real estate. And I think the big thing when you're a starting advisor and you're learning investments in insurance and disability sales, all that, the big elephant in the room with your client is going to be their real estate investments. And maybe the big elephant in your plan is your real estate investment in your own growth. So I think the first investment into real estate, the simplest one, the ways to invest, drum roll, Aaron, what would be the first way to invest in real estate?
Buy a house to live in.
Buy a house to live in. Nice. So,
and someone told me don't ever sell that house.
Oh yeah, there you go. Or maybe
I read a book one time.
Yeah, don't ever sell it. So, okay. So the first way to invest in real estate is to buy your own piece of property. I think that's going to be key. Any advisor listening, it's super simple. If you've been at your job, typically about 2 years, there's some programs where it's a little less, or, let's say you have a ton of cash that you've inherited. And let's face it, you probably went to college. You're a competitive person. You get out of college and no, you don't have any money. So the only way you'd have a huge down payment was if you ran some business in college, you were somehow really lucky in cryptocurrency, and, some way you saved 20, 30, 50% to put down, but you probably don't. So right now you're thinking, okay, how do I invest in real estate if I have $15, $20, $30,000 saved? The answer is simple. Most first-time home buyer programs or first homes, let's just say, are under $400,000. And there's tons of programs that can either go zero down, 5% of 400,000 is 20% or $20,000. So there's these programs anywhere between 0 and 5% down that you could employ or use to your benefit, finance the home. We're not going to go backwards and do rent versus own. That was the first video that we ever did. And you can see that on our library. And ultimately, you'll have a mortgage payment and go through the mortgage process, close on the house, own your first home, be making payments, and you look up and you go, yay, I own my home, or I own the right to make a mortgage payment on that home. What did you buy? Go ahead.
I would say one thing is, too, you really only have to live in it for 12 months as your primary before you can buy the next one.
You're stealing my thunder.
Oh,
you are stealing the thunder. All right. Well, that's way one to get into real estate. Now starts to open up. What's another way to buy real estate? Anybody have any volunteer ideas on what they've seen, how a client got into real estate? We titled this the 5 best real estate, entry points. Is that what's the title?
No, it's just best ways to get into real
The
estate.
5 best ways to get into real estate. What's the next one? Aaron?
You can flip a home.
Flip a home. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How'd you do it? In a minute or less, how'd you flip a home?
The first flip I ever did was a condo. It was referral from a realtor, and it was a condo that was going into foreclosure. So the seller let me carry the note. So basically all I did was I caught up the mortgage payment. She moved out, and then I fixed up the property, and then I bought it off of her, and we did what's called a dual escrow. So I bought it from her for a sales price, and then I sold it to another investor, all at the same time at the closing table. So my out of pocket was just the construction money, which I don't remember how much that was, but I think it was probably less than 20 grand.
How long ago did you do that?
That was in 98.
Wow. Okay. So 24 years ago. Awesome.
98.
So the funny thing is buy a property, fix it up, and sell it. And you went into, hey, this was a foreclosure, a realtor had referred it to you. So anybody listening, if you put your ear to the ground and say, hey, I'm interested in foreclosed properties or distressed properties or wholesale properties, and By the way, Dino, you mentioned one thing really important, that the seller, how was it financed again?
I basically took over the mortgage. I caught up her payment
Ah,
and then I moved her out. So basically, she was not going to get any money if she lost the home.
Okay.
The bank's gonna take. There's a little equity in there. So the proposition was, hey, I'll catch up your mortgage and then I'll sell it, and you'll be able to make. I think I gave her $5,000 or $6,000 when the deal was done, which is $5,000 or $6,000 more than she would have had.
So
had
she was
not done a deal.
So ultimately, she was a rational seller who was foreclosing back 24 years ago. She understood. She understood what she had to lose, which was everything, and and you presented an offer where she had something to gain. So that's, by the way, anybody listening, pretty sophisticated way to acquire a first-time flip. You know, let's say this, Dino, there's probably some seller financed flips out there that someone just doesn't want the property and they own it free and clear, and the seller could finance it. But then last but not least, hey, let's say you've got some money or your clients have money and they want to do a flip. Now, this will be a conflict of interest for you if you have a client with a bunch of cash and you're watching this and you're a planner and they're like, hey, I want to go flip properties to make money. So they would have to take that money out of an investment account, go buy this, $100,000 house somewhere, and then, fix it up with their money and then sell it and then put all that money back in. But it's not a bad idea if somebody can do that. I mean, do you know how long did
And
that
there's a lot of ways that same scenario you just described, you can do where they can actually not have to liquidate funds. They can keep funds with the financial advisor, and they could do a common loan scenario is 10% down on the purchase price, and then they get to finance 100% of the construction.
Right.
So they're all out. Their investment is literally just 10% of the acquisition. So if they buy that $100,000 property, they're down for 10 G's. And then if it costs $100,000 to rehab it, that 100,000 is financed. So they're still only out the 10% on the acquisition, and then they can experience the gain. So they'd have to work with, obviously you and the CPA and the financial advisor on how to manage short-term gains and stuff. But that's a way to turbocharge somebody's investment account for sure.
Right. All right. So option 2, do a property flip. There's a lot of ways to get into it. Whenever I think property flip for anyone, it's always like, hey, the property's not in very good condition right now. So we just have to look at ways to finance properties that aren't in tip-top shape. And part of the benefit of doing a flip, the more complex, the more your client's going to learn. If you ever do one, the more you're going to learn about it. Honestly, Dino, the first flip I ever did was the house that I lived in for a little while on Holly Street. I bought it in foreclosure as well and got a construction loan from the bank. I think we put down 5%, and, same kind of story. And that was in 2001. And I eventually sold the house in 2004, but I lived in it a couple years.
That's awesome.
Maybe it was 2000 when I picked it up, and then I sold it in 2004. I always remember that house because that's when 9/11 happened and Patrick had just been born. I was home for that week, and all of a sudden we turn on the TV and I'm watching this nightmare happen. So kind of an interesting memory. Anyways, third way. What's the third way? Aaron, third way to get into real estate.
You could partner with someone.
Partner with someone. That's not a bad idea.
This is Rob. Hey, that's what I was going to say.
All right.
My first time was co-signing.
You co-signed with a buddy?
I did. I just want to be a passive investor.
Nice. Where was the property?
In Germantown.
In Germantown. Do you still own it?
I do.
And do you still own it with the investor?
I do.
Nice. When did you buy it?
2014.
Wow. What'd you buy it for?
190.
What do you think it's worth today?
410.
$210,000. No, 190 to 410, $220,000. It's a pretty good rate of return.
It was a good time to buy in Germantown.
It was. When you say you did it with a partner, you couldn't have done that by yourself. So you pooled your incomes and your collective borrowing power to be able to do it.
Yeah, I was just worried about the ability to keep up with the property due to my workload, and I just didn't know if I had the ability to run an investment property. So I thought it'd be wiser for my first one to partner with somebody on it.
Nice. So you reduced the risk, reduced your investment in. You were able, did you finance it?
We did.
All right. So you co-signed on a loan and then, I mean, crazy. It wasn't rocket science, but you wanted to get in. So you partnered. That's awesome. Third way, partner. What's a fourth way to get into real estate? Besides your owner occupied residence?
This is on the investment side of things, but maybe buying a primary residence with a detached like guest suite and rent that out. It's still on the primary side of things, but
Well, so you're saying buy like a multi-unit, live in
Right.
one. So buy maybe a duplex. Around here, they call them, you can have a single family in the front and in the back. They call it a detached dwelling unit. DADU, DADU, detached accessory dwelling unit. That's
Right.
like fancy talk for, hey, garage apartment or in-law suite. The McCain, you also mentioned, just like you could have a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex that technically, if you're still buying it owner occupied, that, you can rent out the other units. One of my first clients, he bought a quadplex in Washington, D.C. for his mother. He was relocating her from Richmond up to Alexandria, and he found a quadplex. We did an FHA loan. They put down 3.5%. That I think it's gone to 5%. And the mother only was getting Social Security income at the time. And with FHA, you could use the rents on the other 3 properties as income for her loan application. So the rents on each other unit was like $1,200. The property was close to Georgetown University, and it was like $400,000. The loan was like $380,000, and we qualified her on Social Security income and the other rents.
Wow.
Now, true story, to make it even more complicated, he bought that house because he knew the mailman and the mail route, and he claimed that the mailman knew when people were going to sell. And so the
That's so
mailman
great.
told him about this quadplex. He knocks on the door. He talks to one of the renters, and apparently they had received notification that the property was under contract for sale. They had never been offered first right of refusal. In Washington, D.C., your tenant has first right of refusal to purchase a property for sale. Jay, my client, was in commercial real estate, got the tenant to assign him the first right of refusal. He went to the attorney where the deal was closing, and he said, I have this property under contract. This closing isn't happening. The tenant and I are buying this property, and you never notified the tenants. This sale is not happening. The seller and the buyer went nuclear at the closing table, and Jay had a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, yeah, we'll cloud title. This isn't happening today. I ended up doing the loan. The listing agent calls me so mad. We closed like 3 weeks later. She was so furious. But I had said to Jay, the client, like, that was genius. Like, he just knew the laws. So if you're still watching this and you're a planner, there's all sorts of fun things that your clients want to do in real estate that ultimately, depending on how aggressive they want to be, could be really great long-term investments. Because here's your goal as a planner, in my opinion, to have them have a balanced portfolio. And if they have real estate income producing properties that can help pay for insurance premiums, or they can take those profits and invest with you in the markets, buy disability insurance, those are all things that you want your clients to have passive income outside of the money that you manage for them, in my opinion. So we talked about multifamily. What's the last way, fifth way to get into real estate?
Not sure if we're going this route, but you can just be a professional.
Be a professional? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
You can get your real estate license You do
Okay.
property management.
Right. Well, I mean,
I mean-
if we're talking to the advisor right now and they're meeting with clients and their clients are asking them, hey, how do I get into real estate? I mean, obviously,
that was a little bit, that was a little bit out like a left wing, but I think we didn't really talk about just building
yeah, I
from the
guess
ground up.
building would be a good one. So like new construction. So if the client found land somewhere that they could build a property, like we call it a speculative build. So kind of like what Rob did, Rob partnered up. There's a lot of people in Middle Tennessee, Dino's in Sacramento, that they found dirt somewhere. They're in a neighborhood and they see an empty lot and they're like, God, why is that lot empty? And it's like, oh, that was the grandma that used to live there. She owned the house and the lot. They go purchase the lot. The neighborhood's nice. They then go to a bank and say, hey, if I wanted to build an investment property to sell, could I get a loan from you? The bank says, sure. Let's look at your architectural plans. You know, which builder do you want building it? How much is it going to cost? And how much is it going to be worth when it's all done? Kind of like Dino's property flip, but a little different because you're buying raw land. So many people, and Grant, your thing of getting into real estate, I mean, I do think that a lot of clients that the advisor is going to meet, they got a day job. They're a doctor. They're a lawyer. They're, an insurance claim adjusters, whatever. And they start dabbling in real estate part-time to really earn a strong income and to build their assets that, ultimately you're going to be staring at as the advisor to say, hey, wow, you flipped 4 properties in the last 2 years and you've got 300 grand. Let's put some of that in the market, or let's do, let's peel some of that back because you've made it and put it somewhere else more secure, and then keep doing this over here. So Grant, your answer was correct, almost like getting into it.
Well, hey, Brendan, I have a fourth way, to be honest.
And we're about to wrap up. But
this
yeah,
is
go
actually
ahead.
kind of interesting. Your grandmother example made me think of it. I'm fortunate enough to have a 99-year-old grandmother right now, and my wife and I fully intend to acquire her primary residence whenever that time comes, and because it's a fully paid off property. And so, real estate acquisitions through family members is another great way to acquire property.
Yeah. I mean, if you know that through like her estate that you can purchase it and turn it into a rental property, again, a great way to do it. I think that Aaron, you had mentioned early on that like a primary residence, you could you could move every couple of years, a year or 2 years,
Every 12 months.
Yeah. Your first residence you sold here in Nashville, but then you bought an apartment downtown.
A condo.
Sorry. And then you were one of the first people that walked in I don't know, 2008, 9, 10, somewhere, 11?
2010. Yeah.
2010. And you got a short-term rental permit.
Well, they didn't have a permit back then. That wasn't until 5 years later. They didn't know. They looked at me like I had 3 heads. They didn't know what was going on.
Well, whatever it is, you went in the front door and you were some of the first people that started renting your property. True story. I remember Aaron saying, I was like, hey, Aaron, what are you doing this weekend? He was like, oh, Julie and I are out in Bellevue in a hotel. I was like, whoa, what?
Microtel.
Yeah, I was like, wait, you're not at like Disney World Hotel? He's like, no, we're in Bellevue. There are people partying at our house right now, and they're paying us $600 a night. I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, we rent short term to people that come into Nashville because our property's right here downtown on 2nd Avenue. I was like, all right, well, that sounds cool. Flash forward, I remember Aaron, I don't know what year it was, but it was definitely a lot of money on your Schedule E that offset expenses and,
oh yeah,
helped put clothes and food on the table. And, your property ended up being a whale of a property, and you still own it today. So I think, outside of those 5 things we mentioned, when people start, keeping residences and moving to the next one and acquiring real estate, I'm not 100% convinced, and you could call any one of the guys here that, there are clients that might never use you as a financial planner because the only way they believe in making money is real estate. And they're that person that's got 30, 40, 50 properties and they think they figured it out. But I will say this, I have seen some of those clients work with a planner and then they just kill it because they have so much equity. They got so much cash flow. The planner that worked with them showed them that, hey, they need to diversify into the markets and things. And you get really wealthy people that own real estate. I think for your clients in general, a great goal, and you can all nod your head if you agree. If every financial planner at Northwestern had a client that owned 2 to 3 properties, maybe 2 of them were their previous residences, that, the financing was in place when they left, they leveraged, and those things were just building equity and paying down the mortgage, that every financial planner would be like, heck yeah. Like that's like another $500,000 or $1 million just sitting there that the planner one day could help advise when one day maybe they want to liquidate it, or maybe one day it's paid in full and it's their annuity. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Grant, you're young, you got 2 properties. Dino, you're my age. What do you think about what I just said? Yay, nay?
I mean, I think I'm yay on that.
Okay.
I think that, yeah. Yay.
Yay.
Definitely a yay, because as you build it bigger, you're gonna have more moving parts and need more
Yeah.
advice. You need somebody to advise you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 24. I've got 2, and I think it's just about having different buckets at the end of the day. And if I want to pull out in a line of credit or something like that, a couple $100,000 in the next few years, and really invest in the markets and build another bucket. I think that's, it's just, you're a little more allocated, you get a little more, there's room to grow different ways. So.
And it is funny in closing when, being in the mortgage business as long as I have, everybody's like, oh, you're real estate heavy. I was like, well, no, I've been with Northwestern for 16 years and have policies and certain things I invest in. And, ultimately when I look up, exactly what Grant said is that, having all of the buckets, I have every bucket, including crypto, that I only have like $5,000 in, and I don't even know how to open up the statement right now. I think it was $8,000, but
Yeah.
I'll
Bad
say this,
news.
Brendan.
I won't tell you what it is now.
yeah,
I'll say this, Brendan. I think a lot of younger people right now, and advisors are hearing this every day. They don't want to invest because they want to have Airbnb income, like Aaron has.
right.
And I think the biggest thing is education there. That
Yeah.
it's not always a home run. There's a time and place for it. And if we're not ready to get to that place yet, then let's go ahead and start the other buckets, which is investing into the markets and saving money and getting insurances in place. So, there's a time and place. Timing is everything,
Right. 100% agree. And I would say more times than not, out of those 5 things we mentioned, more times than not, the client's not really ready yet. They're starting to think about it. And that involves just what you said, Grant, what we talked about is just planning it out a little bit better, mapping it out, and then executing once the plan is ready. Because I've heard so many people, oh, I want to earn multifamily, and they're at the beginning stages of building wealth. They shouldn't go buy a 4-unit home yet. They're not ready.
Yeah, Brendan, there's one more thing I think we should talk about real quick. Reserves as you start buying more real estate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think where do we stuff that money at usually? Where have you seen clients been putting it?
Normally it's in a money market fund or a savings account, or it's in an investment advisory account.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to have that in some sort of investment account where it's growing and it's a reserve requirement for you to go continue to invest in real estate. So, I mean, clients who want to own a lot of real estate, they need to save money and put it in the markets.
Well, I think this call, we'll finish up here. I believe that the more you know as an advisor on how to get into real estate yourself personally, then you can really kind of be aware for your clients when that trigger, you'll hear something in a conversation when you're doing a review or you're in a fact finder meeting. And I really believe that the more you know about this, the better. So we're always here as a resource, obviously for you first, and then your clients second. And the next call, the topic will be what, Benton? What's our next call? The next call, we are actually going to break down investment properties and look at some pro formas, some rent rolls, and like how rental property works. So that would be a good one. Nice tee up, Grant, on reserves and just the technical ins and outs of like how do they actually work. So we'll look at an Airbnb versus a long-term rental, and that'll be a good one that we can record for you. So Dino, thank you for guests. I mean,
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, your 1987 property flip. 1998 condo flip. I didn't even know about that. So appreciate the help.
Awesome.
All right. Signing off. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.